Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyersportsbetting.com. Look us up on Roku or in the sports section, Dwyer Boxing and Sports News. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, prior to the Cotto Delvin Rodriguez fight, I made a video here on YouTube where I picked Cotto to win the fight, and in a move that's a bit unusual for me, I didn't hedge the play. Well, Cotto delivered. Third round knockout. Left hook up top, dropped Delvin Rodriguez. After the fight, Freddie Roach, in fact before the fight, if you've been tracking his comments, Freddie Roach said that he wanted Cotto to fight Sergio Martinez. Roach believes that Cotto will beat the reigning middleweight champion. In my opinion, not so fast. I'd take Sergio Martinez in that fight. First, let's talk about Cotto against Delvin Rodriguez. Now, there are a few things to consider in this fight. Rodriguez was really tailor-made for Miguel Cotto. Cotto at his best, and he was at his best in this fight, is a devastating body puncher. Right? His left hand to the body is really his signature. That's the punch that usually stops opponents. Right now, Delvin Rodriguez, taller than Miguel Cotto, stands a bit upright, leaves his body a bit exposed. It cost him in this fight. Now, Cotto with Freddie Roach, right? This was their first fight together after Cotto left Pedro Diaz, right? That's an inspired pairing. Freddie Roach knows how to maximize a fighter's foot speed, right? Miguel Cotto is moving around the ring in this fight. He knows how to cut off the ring. He actually has pretty good foot speed. And here, you actually saw him use it, right? Cotto's also bending at the waist a bit more. He seems to have better defense. That right hand is up around his face, right? And of course, Cotto has always had an excellent jab, and here he flashes the jab more than in other fights, right? So you have a situation where you have a guy who has a very heavy punch, can be very aggressive, his foot speed is on display, and he's harder to hit. He's fighting lower, right? He's actually bending. He's not there to be found. Rodriguez couldn't figure out the puzzle. And let me just say, I'm old school. I don't believe Rodriguez had an adequate opportunity to figure out the puzzle. Folks, it's a 12-round fight. We've seen guys start fights and look a lot worse, right? Delvin's losing the first 2 rounds. Both of them are 10-9 rounds, right? Rodriguez is backing up. He's trying to read Cotto. Third round starts. Cotto comes in. Rodriguez, who had been hit with a bevy of body shots, is trying to protect his body. This time, Cotto throws a right hand to the body, then comes up top with the left hand, hits Delvin in the head. Delvin goes down. I didn't like the stoppage. The referee, I'm not even sure if he gives Delvin Rodriguez a count. This is the first time in the fight, the first, that Rodriguez has hit the canvas, and it's early in the fight. It's the beginning of the 3rd round. Rodriguez also is not unconscious. The referee doesn't even have an opportunity to talk to Rodriguez to detect any slurred speech or anything like that, right? The ref simply steps in and stops the fight. Now, it did look like Rodriguez was a deer caught in headlights. He did look like he was losing rounds. Folks, it's the 3rd round. When I say losing rounds, this is the bare threshold for the plural, right? He lost 2 rounds, right? He gets hit early in the third, goes down. What's the ref doing? Jumping in and immediately stopping the fight. Then the ref get a little bit too caught up in the crowd dynamic and what was happening, right? Don't we want guys to have an opportunity to recover, to show their courage after getting knocked down, especially when Rodriguez, once the fight is stopped, looks lucid, right? I know Max Kellerman on the telecast says, yes, Rodriguez staggered back to his corner, right? Let me just say, he looked pretty lucid to me, right? We don't even know how he would have been at the count of 5 or the count of 6, because the referee didn't even get to that number, right? No doubt Rodriguez trained diligently for several weeks for this fight. Cotto lands a bomb, Rodriguez hits the canvas, and you don't give him an opportunity to at least get off the canvas once to continue the fight? You don't even have a conversation with him to see how he's doing? You know those fights where a guy gets hit on the canvas and he gets off the canvas and then the ref says, how you doing? Where are we? Take a couple of steps to me. Show me your hands. Those fights, that wasn't this fight. You would have thought that they had not a 3 knockdown rule, but a no knockdown rule. Rodriguez hits the canvas. This fight is over. Why? Well, let's now shift gears to a possible fight against Sergio Martinez. Freddie Roach claims that he knows how to beat Martinez. That in fact, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. only fought for 1 round in his fight against Sergio Martinez, and in that round he dropped Martinez. Right? As Freddie Roach said in an interview, all he had to do was let his hands go. Right? Now, different fighters have different images. But understand this. Sergio Martinez, in my opinion, is on the verge of being one of the great middleweights in history. Right? The other guys on that list, really, the Mount Rushmore of the middleweight division, as I see it, consists of Carlos Monzon, Marvelous Marvin Hagler, and Bernard Hopkins. The only reason why I don't place Martinez there already is simply because those 3 guys I named were dominant at the weight for so long that it just wouldn't be fair to them to put a guy who hasn't been dominant for as long on the same mountain with them, right? If Martinez continues doing what he's doing, he certainly belongs with them. To the old-timers, I know Sugar Ray Robinson was a middleweight champion. Just understand that Robinson's best days were at welterweight. Look at the record, right? Just understand that Robinson lost some fights at middleweight, right? I don't believe Ray Robinson, perhaps history's best fighter, right? Certainly in the short conversation with men like Floyd Mayweather, right? I don't think Ray Robinson belongs on the Mount Rushmore of great middleweight champions. Say what you want about Bernard Hopkins. Just look at the longevity and the number of title defenses that he had at middleweight. Also, Carlos Monzon, if you want to see a great jab, one of history's stiffest jabs, if you want to see a complete destruction of a fighter, look at Monzon's victory over Nino Bienvenuti. Look at some of the other fights Monzon had. You're talking about a guy who stood upright but yet generated incredible punching power. One of the hardest punchers in history. And of course, Marvelous Marvin Hagler was literally running roughshod over everyone in the 1980s until a very debatable loss to Ray Leonard, right? Well, Sergio Martinez, whether you think he is one of history's best middleweights or not, just understand he certainly, at a minimum, is a Hall of Famer. I would say he is clearly one of the very best in the sport, pound for pound. Online, after Cotto's victory over Delvin Rodriguez, many people are clamoring for a Cotto-Floyd Mayweather rematch. Let me just say, I'm much more interested, and I mean much more interested, in Mayweather against Sergio Martinez. That's a much more intriguing fight to me on a host of levels, right? Let's face it, Mayweather already beat Cotto by a wide margin. The one thing you need to know with Floyd Mayweather is once he solves your puzzle, right? Once he's picked your lock, he knows how to open your door. And Mayweather actually finished strongly against Miguel Cotto when they fought, right? Mayweather certainly, an argument can be made, dominated that 12th round. I thought that 12th round is really Floyd's best round of the fight, right? A Mayweather-Cotto rematch would start in round 13, only this time Floyd would already know the combination to the safe, right? I think Floyd-Cotto 2 would be an easy payday for Floyd. I'd be surprised, quite frankly, if Floyd didn't get the stoppage in that one. Now, with Sergio Martinez, it's a lot more difficult. Now, understand who Martinez has beaten. Kelly Pavlik's actually an underrated fighter. Great jab, very difficult matchup, right? Sergio Martinez beat Pavlik. Sergio Martinez beat Paul Williams, a man we used to call the most feared fighter in boxing, right? He beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. when Chavez Jr. allegedly was unbeaten. Count me among those who certainly believe Carlos Molina beat him back in the day, but officially, Chavez Jr. was unbeaten. Keep in mind, too, one of the reigning middleweight champions, Darren Barker, lost to Sergio Martinez. Martinez knocked him out when he was unbeaten, right? The body of work, quite frankly, is impressive. Let me go one step further. There's a weight dynamic here. Miguel Cotto hasn't fought at middleweight. Sergio Martinez has thrived at middleweight. I'm a bit surprised that people are just assuming that weight doesn't matter when it comes to Miguel Cotto. Let's go a little bit further. Now, I'll agree. If you're with me on the Sergio Martinez side of the aisle, understand there are storm clouds. Martinez is coming off of surgery, right? He had been injured. As a result of the surgery, since he's not going to fight for the rest of this year, right? Since the earliest he's going to fight is in the spring of next year, there might be issues of ring rust and timing, right? His first fight back, the guy he's going to be fighting against might not be fighting against a ready Sergio Martinez. Martinez might be shaking off the cobwebs, right? So if there's a time to fight Sergio Martinez, it's going to be in Sergio Martinez's next fight. But what I want you to also consider are the flaws even today in Miguel Cotto, right? Understand boxing really is about a rhythm, right? Rhythm's very important. If you look at Martinez's fights, you'll notice he rocks in fights. It destabilizes opponents, right? They get lulled into his rhythm. Fighters have to pick the gaps into which to throw punches, right? It's just like hitting a wide receiver in football, right? There are windows of opportunity when you have to throw the ball, or in boxing when you have to throw the punch. Now, Miguel Cotto is a one-handed fighter. right? I believe much of his game is an optical illusion, right? His left is his dominant hand, right? So, understand, if you know that Miguel Cotto can really only knock you out with his left hand, when he's hitting you with a jab, because he has his left out front, when he's hitting you with the left jab, when that left hand is busy throwing other punches, if you're a highly skilled opponent, you know that Cotto can't hit you with his deadly left hook at the same time he's hitting you with a jab. Also, the right hand is really just a placeholder. Let me go one step further. Let's talk about another fighter Freddie Roach has. Manny Pacquiao is predominantly one-handed. I'll agree he has a short right hook. I'll agree with that. But there's a difference between Pacquiao and Cotto, and it's profound. Right? Pacquiao can throw a long left hand. Right? First of all, Pacquiao's fighting out of a southpaw stance. Cotto's fighting out of an orthodox stance. Right? Whereas Cotto's power punch is a left hook. Right? It's a hook. So he has to be a bit close to you. Manny Pacquiao's power shot is a straight left hand. He can hit you from way outside. That has implications, right? You can literally control whether Miguel Cotto is able to land his power punch by your spacing in the ring. If you're too far away from Cotto for him to throw the left hook, or if you lull Cotto into throwing left jabs, tying up his left hand, you have an opportunity to do damage. Now, Delvin Rodriguez didn't have the time to figure out the full dynamic. But I don't believe Cotto can knock you out with his right hand. I believe you can let that punch land. As good as Cotto's jab is, it's not a Carlos Monzon jab. I don't believe Cotto can knock you out with his jab. It's not a Larry Holmes jab, right? So I believe while Cotto's doing all this other stuff with left jabs and right hands, an astute fighter, and Sergio Martinez is one of the most cerebral fighters in the game, right? An astute fighter would know that he really needs to just guard against that left hook. If Cotto is not in position to throw the left hook, you could go to town on him, right? Let me go one step further. A fight that has always bothered me. Martinez is a southpaw, and he's fast. Zab Judah is a southpaw, and he's fast. Fast hand speed. Maybe he doesn't move around the ring as well as Martinez, but he has fast hands. Go back in time a few years and revisit Cotto's win over Zab Judah. Cotto's having all kinds of problems with Zab Judah's hand speed. All kinds of problems. So what does he do? He takes a page out of the Felix Trinidad playbook. Starts throwing low blows. Folks, I'm talking about several low blows. Was that Miguel Cotto or was that Andrew Galata against Riddick Bowe for the boxing historians? Right? I believe he had to throw low blows because he couldn't handle Zab Judah's hand speed. Now that's prime Miguel Cotto. I know Cotto looks prime right now, right? Let me just say this though. When Freddie Roach after the fight says he's back, well, you know, then he wasn't there for a while, right? Well, my point is simply this. If Cotto had a problem with Zab Judah's hand speed, what's going to happen when Sergio Martinez starts flashing hand speed like Judah did from a southpaw stance? Understand, too, Few people in the sport hide their bodies as well as Sergio Martinez. He bends at the waist, and while he's bent at the waist, Martinez can get off power punches, right? I believe Martinez against Cotto might be able to literally dodge Cotto's left hook and land a straight left hand right down Main Street, right? It's debatable to me, and I know this is controversial, but it's debatable to me which one of these two hits harder. Understand, Martinez, in addition to knocking out Darren Barker, knocked out Matthew Macklin, knocked out Sergio Zinzurek. Understand, Zinzurek was unbeaten when Martinez took him out. Isn't Martinez really, truly, a boxer puncher? You can't just view him as a boxer. He's a boxer puncher, right? High caliber shots. He has a .44 Magnum out there. He can take you out, and unlike Cotto, Martinez is two-handed. Martinez also is advanced. He can lead with power shots. So, Martinez also fights slow. Unlike Delvin Rodriguez, he's not going to be standing upright with an exposed body. He's going to be low, just like Cotto is low. So all I'm saying is Cotto is going to have to worry about a lot of punches from Martinez, whereas Martinez is just going to have to worry about Cotto's left hook. Also, Martinez has an excellent jab. Didn't Austin Trout's jab give Miguel Cotto a lot of problems? Why are we ignoring the problems Cotto had with the jab? Also, think about another slick southpaw who beat Cotto, Manny Pacquiao, right? Aren't there moments in that fight where Pacquiao lulls Cotto into throwing a left jab, then dodges the jab, jumps inside, is able to do all kinds of damage, landing power shots, right? Because, of course, Cotto has his nuclear weapon out front. You get past that nuclear weapon, and what you have is a guy who, quite frankly, is exposed. So, I would take Sergio Martinez in that fight. In fact, the primary bet I would make in a Cotto-Martinez bet would be to take both guys by KO, because I would feel that that fight's not going the distance, right? I think both guys just hit too hard, and there would be a part in that fight where the leather would land. I would not expect this fight to go the distance like Martinez's last two fights against Chavez Jr. and against Martin Murray, right? I would expect someone to get a KO. And let me just say, I personally would expect the person to get the KO to be Sergio Martinez, right? Because, number one, Cotto doesn't have experience at middleweight. Martinez does, right? Number two, I think Martinez is going to have opportunities to land flush on Cotto, right? Martinez is the kind of guy who literally will be watching your left hand. And then when you throw the left hand, he'll know that he has a window of opportunity to land his counters, right? He's counterpunching Paul Williams for 12 rounds in their first fight, right? He even drops Paul Williams early in that fight. Martinez is a master at countering with power punches, right? I believe Miguel Cotto can be countered. Let me hear from you. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Cotto and Freddie Roach together, that's inspired. No question about it, right? Let me just say this, though. Isn't Cotto remarkably like Roach's mentor, Eddie Futch's prize fighter, Joe Frazier, right? Big left hook. You remember the two guys who beat Joe Frazier? Ali and George Foreman. They beat him two different ways, right? Ali smothered Frazier, held him, right? Pulled him in. I'm talking about in the infamous second fight. Smothers him, pulls him in, right? Destabilizes the left hook by having Joe too close to him. Foreman, of course, in both fights, cut corners. He pushed Joe off of him, knowing that Joe had to try to come inside to land the left hook. Then, of course, Foreman hit him with power shots as he tried to come inside, right? Kind of like Lennox Lewis against Mike Tyson in a different generation, right? My point is simply this. If you know a guy has one big weapon, and it's a weapon he has to get up close to deliver, there are strategies you can come up with to disarm that guy. Let me hear from you. Thanks for stopping by.